Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another comic book Hollywood video segment right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. As always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's comic book Hollywood movie review. And for this week's review, I will be taking a look at the 2008 Marvel Studios film Iron Man. I gotta say though, a very entertaining race in last week's comment section for this week's comic book Hollywood review. It was like a neck-to-neck race between Iron Man and the Crow. And I mean, I think Iron Man only won by like 3 votes. So yeah, it was a really close race. It was very entertaining. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this review by giving you all a brief summary of the film. Well, background info and then a brief summary of the film. So, Iron Man is a 2008 superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character of the same name. It is the first installment to be released in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by Jon Favreau, the film stars Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, an industrialist and master engineer who builds a powered exoskeleton and becomes the technologically advanced superhero Iron Man. Gwyneth Paltrow plays his personal assistant Pepper Potts. Terrence Howard plays military liaison James Rhodes, and Jeff Bridges plays Stark Industries executive Obadiah Stane. I'll go into a bit more detail about the plot. So, more or less, this is pretty much Iron Man's origin story. As I mentioned before, Tony Stark, who is the young head of Stark Industries, is on a business trip over to the Middle East to demonstrate a new product, a new weapon that his company has just developed, because that's what Stark Industry does. It is a weapon manufacturer. And he goes to the Middle East to introduce and demonstrate the Jericho missile. After his introduction, he is abducted by a group of, he is inducted by a terrorist organization who intend to use him to develop the Jericho missile for themselves. And upon completion of the missile, he is promised to be released. Of course, he knows better than that. And so, while he is in captivity, he comes up with the idea of building a super-powered armored suit where he would be able to escape and return back home. Later, after he returns home and after the aftermath of the traumatic experience, 2 things, very significant things that Tony Stark decides to do. Number 1, he decides to shut down the weapon manufacturing sector of Stark Industries because he has learned that the weapons he made for the protection of his country are being used against them. And most importantly, number 2, he learns that the terrorist organization that kidnapped him have gotten their hands on his weapons anyway. And so he uses his original design for the suit that he built in captivity. He goes back, rebuilds it, finalizes it, and becomes Iron Man, and sets out to pretty much engage that terrorist group and to prevent his weapons, his previously developed weapons, from being used to harm other people. And this leads him into a much more thicko situation when he learns that there is actually a leak within his company who have been selling these weapons underneath the table. And so now Tony is faced with stopping this terrorist organization and preventing these weapons from being used, but he is also faced with the job of finding out who's responsible for selling the weapons and how to get his company back on the up and up. Now that is a much more concise summary of the film. Now, with that being said, let's go into the writing of the film. I especially enjoyed the writing of Iron Man. The origin story is handled very well, and I especially appreciate the way that they were able to update it to modern times. Now, granted, of course, the Iron Man story, you could use that in damn near any war period. But the fact that we were still engaged in the Middle East when this film was released, it just made more sense. And the whole, I felt like the timing was well done, and I felt like the way they handled the material and updating it to today's political struggles and whatnot just made a lot more sense. Also, some of the technology that is showcased in the film, and I'm talking about things like, of course, Tony has technology that isn't, well, okay, correction, that wasn't on the market back in 2008, but some of the things that Tony has in the film are actually on the market now. But not only that, I mean, even go as far as to say, like, the cars that Tony has in his workshop and things of that nature, the way in which his house is designed. Also, the decision to move Tony from New York to the West Coast, I thought was that really made a lot of sense. And so all of these changes that were made to the character in order to make him fit in today's environment, I thought were handled particularly well. Another thing I loved about the writing of the film was the pacing. Now, I've seen both the theatrical version and the director's cut, and the director's cut does have a lot more detail and a lot more deleted scenes that do add more to the film. But I felt, when weighing the theatrical version against the director's version, I thought the theatrical version was sufficient. I felt like it's not too long. You get all the information you need. The scenes are paced very well, and so it's not anything that is detrimental to the film, like, say, Daredevil, where the director's cut is much better than the theatrical version. Or I would even go as far as to say Superman 2, the Richard Donner's cut, where that film coincides much more with Donner's original Superman film, and it's more of like one complete piece. The director's cut, in my opinion, for Iron Man is just lagniappe. It's the theatrical version was really good, but if you want some more bang for your buck, the director's cut's the way to go. And another thing I want to talk about with the writing is the comedy. Now, I was told, or rather, not so much I was told, but I've read that the script for Iron Man was relatively short, that it wasn't very fleshed out, and that a lot of the skits and a lot of the scenes that are in the movie were improv. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but there is this sort of genuine chemistry that you can see with the actors on set, because it correlates to some of the comedy in the film. My favorite scenes from the movie, some of my favorite comedy scenes, of course, the entire sequence when Tony is developing the suit, I thought was hilarious. What was it? Was it 5%? It was 5% thrust capacity when Tony goes flying into the wall. I thought that was hilarious. The scene when he finally gets the boots working, when he finally gets the flight stabilizer working, and the dummy robot is getting ready to extinguish him. He's like, and he stops him. That shit was hilarious. My favorite comedy bit, though, is the one when Tony makes the new core, the new miniature arc reactor for his body, and he has Pepper come in to replace him, and she's going into his body. She's like, "Oh my God, there's pus," and he's like, "No, that's discharge. It's from the machine. It's not from my body." And she's like, "Okay." He's like, "You got the copper wire? You got it?" She's like, "Yeah, I got it." All right. It's like, now slowly take it out without touching any of the sides, and don't. And she pulls the copper wire completely out. She pulls the magnet all the way out, and he's like, "Don't." That was it. I told you. She's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Well, I'm going into cardiac arrest because you yanked." That shit was so fucking funny. I was dying laughing that entire scene. I remember when that shit had me rolling. Oh man. And so yeah, the comedy in the film I absolutely loved. And I also make this comment. It's one of the few things that I missed from Iron Man 2, because I felt like I felt the comedy for Iron Man 2 was so fucking far off from what it was in Iron Man 1. They tried too damn hard. It was too slapstick, too in your face. And I'm like, nah, man. Iron Man 1, the subtle, genuine, almost improv comedy was fucking fantastic. Oh, the scene with the dancers when fucking Rhodey and Tony are drinking on the plane. That was my motherfucking scene, man. That shit had me rolling so fucking hard. Oh man, Robert Downey Jr. did that shit. Which is going to bring me to the dialogue and the acting. In regards to the acting, I'm just going to put it like this. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. I don't think there is a single actor in Hollywood who could have done that role better than Robert Downey. And the main reason for that being is because Robert Downey is Tony Stark. Brief little Hollywood history for you all. Robert Downey Jr., for the most part, is Hollywood's version of Tony Stark. Just like Tony Stark, he got into acting at a very young age. Okay, he's kind of the prodigal son. He kind of inherited acting because he's Robert Downey Sr.'s son. Been acting since he was a kid. Has had really good film, big successes, big failures. Has had multiple issues with law enforcement. Had multiple issues with drugs. Another thing with Tony Stark, you know, he was a drug user at a while, and literally, just like Tony Stark did when he was captive, when he had to, I mean, at the beginning of Iron Man 2, Tony Stark makes the claim, he says, never in human history has a better living metaphor for a phoenix ever been personified. And Robert Downey Jr. is the same way, because there was a moment in time when Robert Downey Jr. was written off as an actor in Hollywood. And I think that Iron Man was the film that brought him back to A-list status. And now he has kind of reasserted his role in Hollywood as a top contender actor, as the shit, people. Robert Downey Jr. came back with Iron Man and was like, look, I ain't dead, I'm still the shit. You know, kind of like much in the same vein of what Mickey Rourke did when he did The Wrestler. Came back to the forefront like, look, people, I'm the shit. So, yeah, you weren't going to get a better actor to play Tony Stark than Robert Downey Jr. He is Tony Stark. Other actors, Jeff Bridges, Obadiah Stane. Fantastic job. Now, granted, Obadiah is written more of kind of like the traditional comic book villain. And I know Jeff Bridges, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, we're talking about the cat who was nominated 2 years in a row for the Academy Award for Best Actor. Which, in both those roles, freaking, what? God damn it. I'm so embarrassed. What is the name of the film when he played Bad Blake? I got the soundtrack on my MP3 player. Cause yeah, Jeff Bridges is also a fucking beast musician, which I didn't even know that. God damn it. I keep thinking Country Strong. It's not it's Crazy Heart. Yeah, you know, Crazy Heart, freaking True Grit, you know, Jeff Bridges. Yes. But yeah, his handling of Obadiah Stane was on point. My only comment about that was the way Obadiah was written. Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, great fucking job. I thought she did that character pitch perfect. And of course now Terrence Howard as okay, this could just be me speaking from, you know, this could just be my bias, because I've always been a fan of Terrence Howard. I've always enjoyed his work. I liked him as James Rhodes. I loved him as Rhodey. I was really excited when I found out he got cast as Rhodey. I was like, fucking right. And I was pissed when they didn't re-sign him for Iron Man 2. Nothing against Don Cheadle, because I'm a huge Don Cheadle fan. I don't think Don Cheadle did Rhodey the same way that Terrence Howard did Rhodey. But then again, once again, it had to do with the way Rhodey was written in Iron Man 2. So I understand that's not Don Cheadle's fault, because Rhodey was written poorly in Iron Man 2. So that's not his fault. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the acting. Now, cinematography. The cinematography I enjoyed. I thought it was very well done. Especially the way they handled the exterior. Interior scenes were well done, but of course the night and day scenes, I mean, hell, I did not think that I would enjoy the captivity scenes as much as I did. But, you know, even inside the cave and shit, the lighting was very well done. I also enjoyed how they used monitors throughout the film. I'm talking about like what was seen on television, the security cameras with Tony in captivity, all those things I thought were very well done. Hell, even the graphics that were on the cell phones when Tony's talking with Rhodey and shit like that, I thought the way they utilized that technology was very well done. And of course the graphics were fucking amazing. I thought the Iron Man suit, I mean hell, that scene when he's putting on the Iron Man suit and then you hear the theme that dun 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 dun, and you see everything moving and shit, and then the scene when he lifts up his head and the fucking the helmet comes on and then the mask comes down and the eyes light up, fucking perfect, man. I felt that shit. And of course now I'm talking about the music, the score for the fucking film. Who did the score for that fucking film, man? Oh man, I do not know that cat at all. Ramin Djawadi. I'm not. Oh man, I'm not familiar with his work, but that fucking score for Iron Man, I love that shit. Yeah, love it. And final thoughts on the film. Just to pretty much reiterate, closing out this review. I really did enjoy this film. I thought that the film merited the success that it got. I did not expect to like the film as much as I did. I don't think anybody did. And I really do respect Marvel Studios' tenacity and their willingness to take risk on somewhat unpopular titles, because let's face it, even though Iron Man has been in fucking comic books since I think the late 60s, early 70s, he has never really been that much of he has probably been the biggest comic book character to never translate into the mainstream entertainment. He had a 90s animated television series on Fox, but that was it. Only one animated series, no movies. You see what I'm saying? I mean, he was pretty much the Phoenix Suns of Marvel Comics. One of the biggest names in comic books that never translated to fucking mainstream entertainment. And so I really did like the fact that Marvel took the risk with that character. They produced a really good film that I think is one of the best. I would go ahead and put Iron Man in the top 10 best comic book adaptations ever made, because like I said, all those things I talked about in this review, the way they updated the character, the changes, some of the changes they made to make more sense within the cinematic universe that they were trying to create, and then their choices with the actors, picking the best actors for the job, all of those things correlate in a hell of a fucking adaptation. And that's why I like it. Final thoughts, I give Iron Man a 5 out of 5 stars. It's a great fucking film. If you guys haven't seen it yet, man, I don't know what to say for you. And so with that being said, I'm wrapping up this review, guys. As always, in the comments below, vote for next week. Yeah. Suggest the film you want to see for next week's review and thumb up the one you want to see. Right? Alright. Cool. So that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.